All right. Hello and welcome to this very important episode of Around the Horns. I'm Aaron and I'm here as always with my co-host Zach. Today we will be talking about the Big 12 tournament that saw Texas go on a pretty nice run there. We're going to talk about the upcoming Austin Regional. We're going to talk about the entire field now that the bracket has been announced. And at the very end, we are going to make our picks for Omaha. Just a couple hours after the bracket was released, we're going to tell you what 8 teams will be going to Nebraska, so you don't actually have to watch the whole tournament if you don't want to. Zach, we got a lot to cover today. How are you doing? How you feeling?
Doing good. Yeah, it's glad to be home for a day or two after being in Arlington for a week. But Globe Life treated me well. Some free ice cream and Texas Live was pretty legit. So yeah, it was a good time. Texas kept up their winning ways to the end of the season, and so that was nice.
I heard the press box is up in the top of the stadium up there. Did you have like a bird's eye view up there with that free ice cream? What was that like?
Yeah, well, I almost got hit by a couple of high flying albatrosses, but no, yeah, it's way up there. Like there's no worries about a foul ball ever coming towards you because they're 100 feet below you by far.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, you had a good angle of a lot of good baseball though, because as we mentioned at the top, Texas made it all the way to the title game. Unfortunately, they did end up losing to Oklahoma. It was a really good weekend for the Sooners. I said last week on the show, I had Oklahoma coming out of that side of the bracket. So I wasn't surprised, but I was disappointed. But oh well, Texas picked up a big victory against TCU, and then they beat Oklahoma State twice, which really helped out the RPI. The RPI kind of took off, went on a nice little run there. The committee didn't even bother watching the games on Sunday. That ended up helping Texas. So as far as they know, the RPI ended up around like 11 or 12, not even the final one that ended up, I believe, around 17 or 18. But yeah, Zach, I mean, just your overall thoughts on just the Horns taking care of business. They didn't win the whole thing, but they secured the hosting job, which we did not know if they would be able to do.
Yeah, going into Sunday into Wednesday. We knew it was going to be Hansen and Medeiros. We knew Justin Campbell wasn't going to go against Texas, which was a huge boost. Medeiros was solid. He looked really good. He had that slider working away, and he was really able to limit damage. But Texas, in the end, was able to push across a couple runs and come up with some big hits. Did enough to win, and that's all you can really ask for. I mean, it was an absolute gem, of course, by Pete Hansen. He had 12 strikeouts, which was a tying a career high. He went 7 2/3, I believe it was, and then paved the way for Tristan Stevens to come in and close the door, which is, I think he has 5 saves on the year now. That's really fun. He has as many saves as he does wins, I believe it is. It's really funny to say, but all around, like, the Texas offense didn't look good. They didn't look comfortable in the box against that slider, but Medeiros, that's the best I've seen him all year. Like, that's the version of Medeiros that we expected to see for Oklahoma State when he transferred out of Miami. And, they haven't got many outings like that from him. But like I said, Texas was able to kind of power through. And then on Tuesday, you had Sarloos Gate. So, really close game. Texas jumped out to the lead. TCU just sort of kind of chipping one run at a time, gets back into it. And then the infamous balk call, which, I watched the replay a couple times. I think that was actually the right call. He didn't quite come set long enough for my personal taste. And then, of course, they were going to walk Ivan Melendez, and Sarloos comes out and is motioning, and the umpire immediately tosses him, thinking he's chirping about the balk call. Sarloos sprints over to home plate. There's a kerfuffle at home plate. Sarloos, at the end of the day, ends up getting suspended by the Big 12 for 2 games because he didn't leave the field in a timely manner. Not sure I've heard that one called before, but it was pretty funny because post game, there's supposed to be a 10-minute cool down period. And then the winning team comes in, and then the losing team comes in. No, I'm sorry. Losing team comes in first, and then the winning team comes in. So 15 minutes go by, and okay, well, here's Texas, the winning team. That's okay. Interesting. And then, Texas gets done, and 20 minutes go by, and suddenly a pitcher, Marcelo Perez, who started for TCU, comes in and talks to the reporters, and everyone's like, well, where's Coach Sarloos? Or like, where's the assistant coach? Or, does anyone from TCU even care about this game anymore? Sarloos did not show up for 80 minutes to the post-game conference. Needless to say, his post-game conference was quite short. He was complimentary of Texas. He said they pitched really well. He agreed that the balk call was probably appropriate, which funny enough. But he did point out, he was like, look, I was simply trying to intentionally walk Melendez. I was not trying to argue. So you kind of feel bad for the guy because of the loss to Texas and then the subsequent loss to Oklahoma State, he now misses the first game of the NCAA regional.
Which they're not hosting, even though they won.
Which they're not even hosting, yeah.
After they won the Big 12 tournament, you win the Big 12 regular season, then you end up having to go to College Station of all places to spend your first postseason weekend as a head coach. That is just a tough break there. But yeah, going back to what you said about Medeiros, that was a big performance. It's tough for them not to have Bryce Osmond. We don't think he's going to be back this year.
He might actually be back. I heard some news, and it's a shoulder issue where he's having some discomfort. They're hoping he makes it back for this weekend.
Yeah.
I would say 50-50 on him coming back or not. But not having Osmond was a huge miss in their pitching staff.
Yeah, I will say that'll be big for them because if he's back and healthy, which I don't know, it's going to be hard to be back fully healthy from a shoulder injury in that short of amount of time. But if he's healthy, I really like their chances with Medeiros as number 3. And then we saw what Fan Soccer could do in really long relief. He looked really good.
Yeah.
They've got the guys to do it in the back end. So they should be fine. They're hosting. They're going to have Arkansas rolling into town. So we're going to get to our predictions there later. But yeah, Pete Hansen, Lucas Gordon, that was the story. That was the formula. We knew it going in. You got to win those 2 games. Every game that Texas plays for the rest of the year, started by Pete Hansen or Lucas Gordon, they have to win. And if they suffer a loss in a game where one of those 2 guys starts, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. They might not be completely dead because the offense can score a bunch of runs at any time, but you're putting a lot of pressure on an offense. And just no matter how good the offense is, it's hard to put up double-digit runs consistently, which is what they would probably need to do in that scenario. So
yeah,
the good news is I think when Pete Hansen or Lucas Gordon is on the mound, they've got a pretty good shot just because those 2 guys are on a different level right now. Pete Hansen waking up that early against that lineup that tortured him a couple of weeks ago and then just shoving it for 7 2/3 innings, making it look really easy. It was super impressive from him. Lucas Gordon followed it up, which I didn't even know would be possible. In what was just the biggest game of the year. It was no joke what those 2 guys have been able to do. And it's special to see. They're going to have to keep it up because they've got some more good teams coming to town. But the way I like to look at it is when they made it to that championship game, Texas did, they basically did so by winning a 4-team regional with Baylor, TCU, and Oklahoma State. And that's a more difficult group than what they're going to be facing this weekend, even though, they're facing NCAA quality teams this weekend. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. But you got to feel good every time Pete Hansen or Lucas Gordon is on the mound there. You have anything else to say about the offense or maybe later in the run against Oklahoma? The bullpen looks really good. Tristan and Oliveras really stood out to me.
Yeah, on the offense, I think everyone saw that they sputtered a little bit at the top. Hodo had some nice games. Faltini had some really good games. I actually voted him for person of the tournament or matchup player of the tournament if Texas had won. But I also voted for Peyton Graham if Oklahoma won, and we all saw how that ended up. The thing that was a little concerning was Skyler. Skyler took some really bad hacks this weekend. I don't know. He did not look comfortable in the box like normally Skyler. I think a couple days off and getting back to Dish Falk would be helpful for him. The story on Ivan, he mentioned it today during the press conference, but he said he was throwing up. Pierce had reported that him and Silas were under the weather, and that's why they were removed from the game during that blowout loss to Oklahoma State. You could kind of tell the energy just was not there on that Saturday morning game at 9 a.m. It just had a very different feel. And when Oklahoma State got up large early, it was kind of like, look, let's just get through the game. Let's regroup. Let's get back to the afternoon game. Trey Faltini's taking naps under the table in the media room. Stevens is thinking there's a dead body there. You could tell they needed that mental break for a couple hours. And when they came back out, they took advantage of every miscue that Oklahoma threw at them. And, that's what good teams do is they bounce back and they win big. on Saturday, or I guess on Sunday against OU, 16 strikeouts is just ugly. I honestly think they were just tired. I think, 5 games or 4 games in 5 days. And even having that Friday off, that's a grind to have those back-to-back games. I mean, that's a regional type situation against some really elite teams. And you look at Oklahoma making the Big 12 championship game. They played Texas Tech, twice? No, they played Texas Tech once, and they beat
them. They went
because they played Kansas State twice, and then they played West Virginia. So, it's not even like Oklahoma had the toughest one, but Oklahoma's also been on a tear. So Oklahoma just rode the momentum wave in and took care of business. But everyone's complaining about the bullpen on Sunday against OU. But if you look at it, it's 1 inning. They give up 8 runs in 1 inning. They didn't give up any other runs. So if you don't extend Staley, which I think they learned, you can't go past more than 2 innings. I don't know what you're going to get at all at this point from Nixon. I know Coach Allen says they trust him. He's been to Omaha, yada, yada, yada. But if his slider's not working, there's no reason to even trot him out there.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the pitching staff on Sunday is I'm not going to be overly concerned, because at this point, I think the guys that are going to pitch the important innings have been established, and I don't think it's going to be Travis Staley. I don't think it's going to be Aaron Nixon. I mean, I think at this point, you've obviously got Hanson and Gordon that have to eat innings. And then after that, you've got Tristan Stevens, you've got Southard, you've got Luke Harrison, Marcus Olivares. Those are the guys that you're going to be trotting out. It's not really going to be anyone else. You could throw Andre Duplantier in there.
But it's funny about it's funny about Staley, because Staley had pitched the 1 inning earlier in the week and looked really, really good. He was hitting 95, 96. He was locating that breaking ball. In the first 6 outs, he looked unhittable against Oklahoma State, or against Oklahoma. Sorry.
Yes, Oklahoma.
And so I actually think that's going to go a long way with Pierce, and with, as long as his confidence wasn't just completely shattered by that 3rd inning. But I mean, he's looking at the dugout, like you could tell he was like, guys, come get me. Like, this is not going well. But if he's able to kind of put together another inning or 2 this weekend, I think that'd be huge. So I actually want them to get him out there if they can.
Maybe if it's like a up 10 run situation, but I don't see a scenario where he's going to pitch in a tight game. I just don't. Which, I mean, those positive outings can still help him a lot next year, but I have a hard time envisioning a scenario where they're going to need him in a tight game, just because there's other guys that they're going to go to in those spots. But moving on a little bit, we know what happened in Arlington. We got a lot to talk about moving forward. The bracket came out today, Zach. So Texas has got Air Force 1:00 on Friday. We know the story with Air Force. Texas played them twice in the midweek earlier this year. They split that one. They got rolled in the first game, and the second one was tied. Trey Faltini ended up hitting the walk-off home run. And then also we've got Louisiana Tech coming to town and Dallas Baptist. So those are the 3 teams coming to town. We've got Air Force coming in first. That's the part of the draw I don't really like. If you tell me, just those 3 teams, I'm thinking, okay, Texas got a pretty good draw. I like this for UT, except for the part where they've got to face Air Force, and then specifically Skeens in game 1, the two-way guy. He's got a chance to be like a first, second round pick next year. He's a really good pitcher. He's got a 2.42 ERA. And we know they can hit, because they hit, I think it was 8 home runs in 2 games at the Dish. So you got a team that can hit in an environment that they've already played in this year. It wasn't sellout crowd like it will be this weekend, but they played in the ballpark. And then they've got a legitimate ace. That's a tough draw from a 4 seed. There's not many 4 seeds that can run out that just can pose that type of a threat to a Texas team. What are your thoughts when, what was the first thing that crossed your mind when you saw Air Force pop up on the screen when we were watching with the team today?
When I saw it come up, I said, this is either going to be really good for Texas, or this is going to, be really ugly. Because it can go really 2 ways. Like, Texas has seen all the hitters from Air Force. They have all the tape. They have the video. Hanson alluded to it when we talked to him on Monday. They're going to go back and look and see what was successful against Air Force and what wasn't. And I think that's going to help them a lot. The bad news is we know that Air Force can hit. Now, some of their numbers are inflated because they play up in the high altitude of Colorado Springs.
Yep.
But they also don't play at home that much. So,
okay, yeah, but here's the thing. They play in the high altitude of Colorado Springs. It's going to be 100 degrees at the dish and the wind is going to be blowing out to left. So it's going to be the same conditions they've been hitting in all year. So you can pretty much count those numbers because the ball's going to be flying basically like it is in altitude is the thing.
Yeah. And I mean, if you look at their scores, like I'm going back and looking at some of their scores since Texas, you got Fresno State, 21 runs, 12 runs, 15 runs, 18 runs, 9 runs, 20, 17, 14, 10. I mean, and then you look at this past right before the conference tournament against New Mexico, 25, 12, and 10. What that tells me is they also give up a lot of runs. Like they gave up a 30 spot to San Jose State. Is by some miracle, Jobu's rum. I don't care what it takes, but like Texas has to get to the bullpen. If Texas gets to the bullpen, they're going to run away with this game. So it really depends on how Skeens kind of comes in and operates against the Texas crowd. There's going to be 8,000 strong there on a Friday afternoon. It's going to be 100 degrees, as you mentioned. It's going to be a different atmosphere. Like I realize that they've played all of these away games, and so they're used to it. And there's some Air Force boys, right? Like they're not your typical soft kind of, oh my gosh, I don't want to play in the heat. No, these are some dudes. Got a lot of respect for them, but I just think it's going to be a different atmosphere. I think Texas is going to have a different mindset. So as good as Paul is going to be, because I expect him to be really good, I think Texas, is going to win by 4 or 5 runs on Friday.
No, I mean, it's weirdly, it is such an important game, which you normally, when you're a 1 seed, the number 9 overall seed in the country, you're just going to roll over. You're going to win that game easy. That's just probably not going to be the case just because of who's on the mound for the other team. We're going to get to our picks later. I agree. I think Texas will find a way to win, but I don't think it'll be stress-free. But yeah, the crowd better bring it because that home field advantage is something that Texas is going to need just to rattle the opponent, to help our relievers settle in. So it'll be important, but we'll see. So looking at the other matchups, Zach, we've got Louisiana Tech and Dallas Baptist. Louisiana Tech comes in as the 2 seed. You've got to jot it down. They beat LSU twice this year. They lost. They actually played DBU in a midweek game and they lost, but this will be a different scenario. Both teams will be throwing their ace. What do you think we'll see from Louisiana Tech? What's kind of the scouting report on them? When I saw them as a 2 seed in the Austin Regional, I felt pretty good about it. There's better 2 seeds out there, but they're not a rollover by any stretch. They're coming in pretty hot too.
Yeah. And then one last point that we did not touch on about Air Force is, Skeens gets a lot of the talk and he's obviously their big power hitter, but Sam Coolison game. The dude's number 2 in the NCAA in hits with 98. And he's actually number 4 in the NCAA in batting average. He's hitting 412, which is 2 spots behind Ivan Melendez. So, the Air Force is going to hit. It's going to be up to Hansen and Gordon, in my opinion. But so La Tech. I mean, they've 42-19 on the season, so very, very similar to Texas. They have a 33 RPI. They're 62 strength of schedule, so not amazing, but not terrible. They've had some big games. They are 8-2 in their last 10, so they're getting hot at the right time. They're 10-6 against Q1 teams, so they know how to play the big boys and they know how to win against the big boys. They've, like you said, they beat LSU twice. I think one of them was actually at the box. They went 1-2 against Southern Miss, which is obviously a host team, and then they lost to DBU. I think it was 7-4 that they lost that game, but Taylor Young is the main catalyst for the offense. He's hitting 358 with a OPS of 1138. He's got 11 home runs and he likes to steal bags. He's 26 of 28. So I think it's kind of underrated lately. If Silas hasn't done a great job of throwing guys out at second, some of that's due to the pitches that they're running on. But that'll be something to watch because Louisiana Tech, as like Pierce talked about on Monday, they're not a power team. They're not gonna have a bunch of power arms, but they have a lot of movement. They have a lot of action, and they're definitely not a rollover. I watched a lot of the La Tech this weekend because they were playing UTSA in the tournament. They're gonna battle till the end. It's gonna be a tough game for DBU. And then I assume they're gonna go with Cade Gibson. He's been their Friday night guy.
Yeah.
I think he's got a 6-5 record with a 4.87. They've been earlier in the year. They kind of changed their rotation around a little bit. And so Texas will actually probably see the better of the two guys, Ryan Jennings, if La Tech and Texas were to win. But, if it's close game, they've got a closer, Krieger, he's lights out. He's really, really good. So you better have a lead when you're late in the game against La Tech.
Yeah, that was the thing that jumped out when I was going through the rundown on them. The starting pitching, it hasn't been great. The number 2, Jennings, has actually been a little bit better than Gibson lately. We'll see how that works out, who they decide to go with. But yeah, I mean, you've got Krieger and you've got Tompkins, and those guys have been used heavily out of the bullpen for La Tech, and they've been really solid all year long. So they're not going to hesitate to go to those guys early. They've both been able to extend for multiple innings, and they're going to push those guys in a regional. So even if you get the start out of the game early, the work's not going to be done. They've got an impressive bullpen, and then they've definitely got some bats that can do some damage in the lineup. I expect them to get by DBU, because when we look at DBU, they had a tough schedule, which ended up getting them into the tournament. A lot of people had them on the bubble. The committee did not. They were able to squeak in. Their pitching staff is kind of a mess right now. They have been flip-flopping who they've been starting, who they've been relieving, who they've been starting game 1 on Friday, who they've been starting game 2. They've been all over the place from a pitching perspective. I'm not exactly sure who they're going to go with game 1 and game 2. Zane Russell has been relieving all year. He's been their most consistent guy. He's 4-0. He's got a 1.69 ERA. They can feel good about him. Everyone else has just kind of been all over the place. They're definitely going to try to win with their offense. They've got Jace Grady in the outfield. He's a pretty intriguing draft prospect. He's got some pop. He's got some speed. He'll hit homers. He'll steal some bases. They've got other guys in the lineup that have been producing, but the pitching staff's kind of a question mark there. I'm not overly concerned with DBU. They haven't really impressed me much this year. They don't have great stats, and just they're not coming into the tournament very hot early either. They've got a lot of losses lately. So that's kind of my read on DBU. What are you thinking?
DBU is a funny team that for the long time, they were number 1 or number 2 in the RPI, and their strength of schedule was like number 1 up there for a long time. They ended up as
they played a tough schedule.
Yeah, they ended up as a 23 RPI with a number 9 strength of schedule. But as you mentioned, they're 4-5-1 in their last 10 games. That's not how you want to close out the season. And I think they came 3rd place or even 4th place in their Missouri Valley tournament or regular season. They lost to some questionable teams at the end of the year, but they are 13-9 in Q1 team against Q1 teams. I mean, that's good. The thing about DBU is they're 20-9 at home, but 12-11 away. So playing at a bigger field like Dish Falk, you got to start wondering about their hitting, because you just don't know if it's going to be there. Like their big wins have mostly come at DBU's field there. Hefner's a solid coach. They're going to roll out 95, 96 mile an hour flamethrowers, but can they control it? And they've got some big bats, like you mentioned, Grady and Cole Moore, Robleski, like all those guys are solid. But, can they hit it out of the park like they normally can? Remains to be seen. But the interesting thing is looking at the games that DBU has won in the midweek against Big 12 competition. So against Tech, they went 0-2. One was an extra innings, a loss. The other one was close, but they lost by a couple of runs. They beat OU late in the season after losing it earlier in the season. Same thing with Oklahoma State. They beat Oklahoma State just a couple weeks ago, actually, when Oklahoma State was up to number 7 in the polls. They lost to Oklahoma State the first time around early in the season. They beat the brakes off of Baylor, but who didn't? Rest in peace, Steve Rodriguez. He got fired today. And then they beat TCU. And they beat them twice. I mean, this is a team that has the schedule, they have the experience, and they have the talent. But lately they've faltered, which makes me, I never like to look at teams and vote on them whenever they're coming in less than 500 in their last 10 games to end the season, because that suggests that they're not all right in Hoosville. But we'll see. They played a loaded schedule. I think they'll probably go with Jacob Meador. He's 7-3 with the 4.86 ERA, and then they'll go with Luke Eldred, 5-2 with the 4.76 ERA in game 2. But as you said, they've been kind of flip-flopping guys, but those were, Meador's been their Friday night guy and Eldred's been their Saturday night guy for the last couple conference series. So who knows?
Yeah, it's been all over the place. I'm not sure. You mentioned it with the bats. I'm not sure the bats are quite hot enough right now to carry them against some of the top pitching they're going to see in game one against La Tech. And then if they get in the losers bracket, I just don't think they have the arms to scratch their way back from the losers bracket. So
no,
I don't see it for DBU. I think it's going to come down to the winner of the Texas Air Force game one, and then La Tech. That's how I see it. I've got Texas coming out of this thing. Do you agree with me there? You got the same thing?
Yeah, and I think, interestingly enough, I think Texas takes game one against Air Force, and I think La Tech takes game one against DBU. And I actually think that Air Force, if they play it right, can knock DBU out right away. I think DBU could very easily go 0-2. I have Texas winning. I think there's at home with Gordon and Hansen that gets them to the third game. And at that point, even if their bullpen is 2 innings at a time, I think they're still in a much better situation offensively, being at home with the crowd and supers on the line than the other teams are.
Yeah, and I honestly like the way some of the bullpen pieces are going in that scenario. Like, I feel comfortable getting 2 from Harrison. I feel comfortable getting 2 from Olivares. I feel pretty good about getting 1 from Southern. And then Tristan Stevens, who all of a sudden can just pitch 4 times in 5 days and be throwing 95. That's out of nowhere. That's pretty cool to see. So I obviously feel good about that. So
yeah, I actually had to double check the stats when they said he hit 95 this week. And I was like, wait, I've never seen him hit 95. Hold on. Is that true? Like, can I get a confirmation here?
In his 4th appearance in 5 days, he hit 95.
Yeah, that was cool.
Like, it wasn't even like a big situation. They were down 7 runs and he's just out there throwing 95. That was odd to see. But yeah, it was exciting stuff there. The formula is simple. They've got to start 2-0 with Hansen and Gordon, then win 1 game with the bats / the bullpen arms that are left. And I think they'll be able to do it. So let's move on here, because Texas, they almost got a national seed. ECU, East Carolina, ended up getting the final national seed. They're the number 8. The Greenville Regional will be the regional that pairs up with the winner of the Austin Regional. And in that one, the 2 main teams, we've got East Carolina, and then we've got Virginia. Coastal Carolina is also lurking in that regional. Zach, tell me a little bit about ECU. Tell everyone what the Pirates are about and who ultimately you think might come out of that regional and face. We think Texas. We'll see.
Yeah, ECU's an interesting squad. At the beginning of the year, everyone had there's people penciling them in for Omaha. Talented squad. And then before the first game even hits, news comes out that their ace draft pick, potential first rounder, Carson Wisenhunt, is suspended for violation of team rules. He's going to miss the first game. Okay, that's weird. No big deal. It's a 1 game, right? Several days later, the news starts leaking out from the NCAA that he's actually been suspended for the year due to performance-enhancing drugs. He claims he took a vitamin supplement from like GNC or one of those places. But, I mean, what is he thinking? He's about to go in the first round and he gets suspended for the season. Everyone wrote him off.
It's always interesting when it goes from team rules to NCAA rules, just like that.
Which, I mean, they were probably trying to protect him, but like, dude, it's going to come out if you're suspended for the season. So like at that point, just call a spade a spade. But really rough start. Like I think they lost the first series to SEMO or Bryant or, some other school. And they really were just up and down. Everyone had written them off. And then someone just like flipped the switch into the midseason, and they've 18-game win streak. They're on fire. They played a really good championship game against Houston in the conference tournament. But I mean, they're playing hot. Their starting pitchers, like they're not overly impressive, but they're good enough to get them wins. They're probably not my favorite in this regional, to be honest. I think ECU is either going to run away with this thing, or it's going to be one of those regionals that like Coastal Carolina wins out of nowhere. Virginia seems like they have the better team, like overall, but Virginia's been a mess the last couple of weeks after they were all the way up to number 2 in the nation. Getloff is a dude. That guy is absolutely can mash, but they've just been really bad lately. And so maybe Virginia gets hot playing on the East Coast and, it's regional time. That's what they do typically. But I think this is a regional where, Coastal Carolina or Virginia could end up upsetting ECU. So
it really does feel like it could be a chaos regional. I mean, there's always 4 or 5 regionals that just go haywire, and you can feel it game one. You can feel it immediately. It's going to be one of those regionals. There's going to be rain delays. There's going to be relievers going 8 innings. There's going to be guys hitting 2 home runs. Just a lot of crazy stuff's going to happen. I looked at it. I feel like Virginia is the best team in the regional, but we just talked about it. Entering the regional hot and then entering the regional cold, that is very apparent in the Greenville regional. I mean, East Carolina is on an 18-game win streak. That's no joke. And Virginia, they just went 0-2 in the ACC tournament. They really could not be playing worse right now. And that makes it really tough to make a prediction when you think Virginia is probably the more well-rounded team. ECU's been working through a lot of stuff, but they are on fire right now and they are at home. So that makes it super interesting. Obviously, Texas fans should be rooting for Virginia. They should be rooting for Coastal, because in that scenario, Texas would get to host the regional if they make it through. So that'll be one to track, and that could be one that gets pretty chaotic, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the only thing that gives me pause is before they went on that heater, they lost 2 of 3 to Tulane. Then they got beaten badly by NC State. And then the teams they beat weren't exactly world beaters. They swept Cincinnati. They swept Memphis. They beat an okay Duke squad. They swept South Florida. Now, they did beat a Campbell squad on Tuesday night, and then they swept Houston. And then they played those exact same teams again in the conference tournament.
Not many tournament teams in there.
Like, Houston has a good offense. And it takes special skill to like reel off 18 wins in a row. Like, you're just going to have an off night or whatever else. But, it feels like they've been hot on mediocre competition. And you kind of wonder if they get punched in the face by either Coastal Carolina or Virginia in game 2, like, what does that do to them? Like, what does that look like all of a sudden? But they definitely have the talent. It's just, I don't know. I don't know that I love their schedule. So we'll see.
It'll be interesting. We'll make our full predictions later, and we'll definitely include that regional in there. Overall, Zach, I just wanted to go through some winners and losers just from the bracket coming out, what we saw, who got snubbed. My first winner, a little bit off the board here, Longhorn Network. How about that? We get to the Kansas finale. We talked at length about that. The truck caught on fire. There was no broadcast for the last couple innings of the finale. They thought, baseball season was over. They're like, that was our last broadcast of the year. Texas might not be hosting. Even if they are, we don't know who's going to get the broadcast rights. Might not be LHN. They thought the season was over. Back from the dead, literally rising from the ashes that were the failed equipment that burned to the ground. Just out of nowhere, and now LHN gets the call. They will be broadcasting the game at 1:00 on Friday.
It's Greg Swindell. It's Greg Swindell on the call. Zeke is back. Zeke is back. So
just a great story there. That was my number one winner right off the bat. I was like, man, they really almost ended the season broadcasting through a net on Instagram Live, and now they get a second shot. This is why we play. This is what it's all about.
Yeah, and Texas, I think, has to be a winner here in general.
Yes.
Apparently, the committee just decided that out of conference scheduling and strength of schedule was like the most important thing to them this year, and didn't watch on Sunday. Which, hey, I'm fine with that because I didn't want to watch on Sunday either. So Texas gets a number 9 seed, which there's some bad pieces to that because they have a decent path to the Omaha, but then they might have to face off against a number 1 squad who they've beaten, but is going to want blood, which is Tennessee. But they started off the year as number 1. They had a roller coaster. They were out of the top 25 at one point to coming back to clawing their way back into a hosting contention and then getting number 9 seed. I just feel like, as little excited and subdued as the reaction was, I feel like that's got to mean something. They got to wear that on their chest.
Yeah, they're definitely a winner when you look at the draw, because look, when you look at the draw, which is the Austin Regional and the Greenville Regional, of the 7 non-Texas teams, there is one Power 5 team, and that's Virginia. Everyone else is a small school, a mid-major, which I know is not, it's not like football. The mid-major schools can get hot. They can be really good at baseball. They can be just as good. But look, if you would have said there's going to be one mid-major school standing in the way of Texas and Omaha, and it's Virginia, who just went 0-2 in the ACC tournament,
Yeah.
that's a win in my book. I mean, Texas, that's a draw that favors Texas, no matter how you slice it, just from a talent and experience standpoint. That's why I had them listed as a winner.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then I think you had put this one down, but Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
I mean, they've looked good all year long. They've had a roller coaster in their bullpen as well. Like they've had some massive ups and downs. Bryce Osmond still being questionable, I think is a huge sticking point for them. If they don't have him back, you really got to wonder how they're going to get through some of the bracket. But getting up to I think they're number 7 seed overall.
Yeah, that was my thing, is they entered Arlington not even knowing if they were going to host, definitely on the outside of the hosting bubble. And now they look up, they're hosting. And the number 2 seed is a struggling Arkansas team, which, you're not thrilled about Arkansas coming to town just because they've got talent and they've got experience, but they're struggling right now. So just from where Oklahoma State was at this time last week to where they are now, hosting all the way to Omaha, that's a win in my book. And the way Madero's pitched, the way Bogus pitched in that one game against Texas, he's a guy that they can throw out there and get some length out of. And then they've obviously got Justin Campbell whenever they need him. That's a win in my book. I think they're looking pretty good. So they're my main winner. You got any, who was a loser this week? Just the bracket came out and it's just like, you got to be kidding me.
I think it starts and ends with Georgia Southern.
Brutal.
I was against them hosting anyways. Like I get it. Like they've had a high RPI. They played a really strong out of conference schedule, which is what got them there. But that those guys were like top of the world. We're go Gata. And the next thing is, holy shit, we got Notre Dame and Texas Tech coming to town.
Yes. It's hard to call them a loser.
180 of holy moly. Like, okay, get your pitching ready.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really hard to call them a loser because you've just got, you're so excited. They're hosting a regional, which is a huge deal. And then all of a sudden you look up, you've got Texas Tech and Notre Dame coming to town, maybe the best 2 seed and the best 3 seed in your region. And then if you somehow make it out of there, you're going to Knoxville, where it's just probably not going to go well.
Yeah. So like I said, Georgia Southern they had to have done a 180 with the news of, we're paired up with number 1 overall seed Tennessee. Oh, wait, we got Notre Dame and Texas Tech coming to town and they're going to play in the first round. Like, man, talk about some fireworks.
Yeah, it's just kind of brutal because you're so fired up. You're Georgia Southern, you're not expected to host, and you're hosting a regional. Such a great moment for the program, for the school. And then you've got maybe the best 2 seed in the whole bracket coming to town, maybe the best 3 seed in the whole bracket coming to town. And then if you somehow make it out of that regional, you're going to Knoxville, where things are just probably not going to go well for you. So, you feel like a winner because it's a great season you got to host, and then the actual bracket comes out and you just don't feel as good anymore. So it's a tough break there for Georgia Southern.
Yeah.
And then just moving on here, perpetual loser, apparently, NC State, man. I mean, last year they make an incredible run to Omaha. They're making a run in Omaha. They've got Vandy on the ropes, all kinds of stuff going on. COVID takes them out. NCAA cancels it. There was a lot of controversy there. And then this year, they're apparently on the bubble, and then they don't make it into the tournament. And there was some controversy there yet again. NC State, not fans of the NCAA or the selection committee, but man, just a tough break. Tough day to be a wolf pack or whatever.
I mean, I'm all for the class action suit of Tommy Tanks versus the NCAA. I mean, geez, how can you exclude those guys? I mean, like I get it. They had some struggles mid-season, but they started out so hot, and they got to the ACC tournament game and lost, I think, to UNC. Like, yeah, come on, give the guys a shot. Like they're so much more deserving than Ole Miss and some of the other teams that made it in. Yeah, so disappointing. The next one I had was UTSA. A little bit of regional bias here, but again, I watched a lot of the the Conference USA tournament with UTSA and La Tech and Southern Miss, I really liked what I saw from that squad. They're solid experience, dangerous bats, athletic kids. They were projected for so long to be like right there on the bubble, like one of the last four in. They even beat Southern Miss twice in the tournament, but they fell short in the ninth inning due to a walk-off to La Tech, and they're out. I was not a happy fan of that. Like that didn't suit me. I think UTSA I don't think they would have caused any noise necessarily in the tournament, but they would have been fun to see them get in. So,
yeah, it probably would have been more intriguing than like a DBU, maybe. But yeah, tough season. Oh, good season overall for them. Just a tough break at the end there. My last loser, I'm going back to Statesboro with Notre Dame. There's just a lot of losers in that region. You know, we talked about Georgia Southern, Notre Dame, man. Everyone had them on the bubble of being a national seed. It's like, all right, they're definitely going to host. They're going to be a national seed. We'll see. It comes out, they're not hosting. Nobody knows what's going on. Not only are they not hosting, they're a 2 seed in the Statesboro Regional, which means if they somehow make it out of there, they're going to Knoxville, which just a couple of days ago, they're like, all right, we're the 8 seed. We're the 7 seed. Don't have to worry about Tennessee. We're going to play in our home ballpark all the way through. And then all of a sudden, you've got to, not only are you matched up as a 2 seed on the road, and you've got the opposing regional as Knoxville, you've got to face Texas Tech in the Big 12 pitcher of the year in game 1 in Birdsell. So not only are you a 2 seed, all of a sudden you're facing the best, most dangerous 3 seed. Just an absolute disaster, a bunch of losers in that region. I mean, you've got, Georgia Southern, Notre Dame got a horrible draw, and then Texas Tech, they live in Lubbock, so they're losers. Just brutal over there in that region.
Yeah, and Texas Tech might be the biggest loser as well in this category, because
always
Texas Tech, at home, they're damn near undefeatable. You put them on the road and they're a 500 team. And so
undefeatable. I love it. I can't let that slide. That's a good one. I'm using that from now on.
But you can't beat them at home, but you put them on the road, like I said, they're a 500 team. So we'll see what happens in that. I mean, I think everyone admits that it's going to be Notre Dame or Texas Tech coming out of that regional. I don't think Texas Southern makes it out.
Georgia Southern, yeah.
Or Georgia Southern, yeah. Like it's just not going to happen. So
that one could be a chaos regional. That would be a
very
fun
well
game.
Could. Texas Tech has terrible bullpen. They don't have a number 3 starter. Like it could just be absolute madness there in Statesboro. And
a lot of runs too.
Yeah, those teams.
Small park. We know Notre Dame likes to hit homers in the postseason. We know the type of lineup that Texas Tech has. Yeah. Could be a lot of runs over in that one. But all right, Zach, I think the time has come. The people want picks. We're gonna pick the winner of every regional, every super. We're gonna give our 8 teams that are going to Omaha. You were just gonna give out a couple feelers, a couple opinions. I think it says you feel good about Tennessee. Okay, yeah, nice. That's what the people came to see. I'm just giving you a hard time. You're gonna make picks. You want me to go first, or you want to go ahead and go first?
Yeah, no, go ahead and go first. Let's see what you got.
All right, so you don't really need to watch the tournament. You can just go ahead and listen to this next 2 minutes that I'm going to go over. I've got Tennessee winning their region. I've got Notre Dame coming out of the loser regional, and then I've got Tennessee over Notre Dame in that super. So I've got Tennessee, no hot take there. I've got Stanford winning their regional, and I've got Wake Forest coming out of their regional as a 2 seed. And then in the supers, I've got Stanford over Wake. Staying in the Pac-12, I've got Oregon State. I think Auburn, there was some controversy about maybe should Auburn host. They ended up getting a pretty decent draw, in my opinion. I think Auburn's going to take care of business, but then I think they will ultimately fall to Oregon State. So I've got chalk there. I think those are the 3 of the better teams. I don't think they're going to get upset. And then I'm going to go Oklahoma over Virginia Tech. I think they both get it done. I think they match up. I think Oklahoma goes to Virginia Tech. They're just so hot right now. They've got guys like Cade Horton out of the bullpen suddenly throwing well. We know they've got Jake Bennett, who's an ace that can beat anyone. The lineup is killing it right now. Peyton Graham is one of the best hitters in the country right now. I hate to do it. I'm going to pick Oklahoma to make it all the way to Omaha. It gets worse. I'm going with A&M. I think A&M, they've got to go through TCU. I think they can do it. They're at home. No one wants to go to College Station. It's just going to be miserable for everyone besides A&M, who's numb to it at this point. I think they're going to match up against Louisville. who will win their regional, and I think A&M makes it to Omaha. I'm going to go with LSU. I think they win the Southern Miss regional. I think the offense is just too good. They're getting Jacob Berry back. They're getting Cade Dory back. Dylan Cruz, we know what he can do at the top of the lineup. I just think they're going to mash their way all the way through. I think they're going to match up against Arizona. There will be a lot of runs in that potential super regional. Arizona can swing it. I'm going to go with LSU and just the talented offense. North Carolina, talk about a team that is hot at the right time. Their RPI ended up soaring. They win the ACC tournament. They do it pretty easily, just a bunch of blowouts. They look really good. I think they're going to go up against Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State has enough to get past Arkansas and everyone else in their regional. And then I don't trust the health of Bryce Osmond. I've been really high on this Oklahoma State team. I think they're going to come up one arm short, and they're just going to run into a buzzsaw that is North Carolina. So I think North Carolina makes it all the way. And then last but not least, I'm going Texas over Virginia. I think Virginia somehow finds a way to right the ship and get it done against ECU. That means Texas will be able to host the Super. I think it's 2 games, best 2 out of 3. Texas has a good formula to win a best 2 out of 3. It's Pete Hansen, it's Lucas Gordon. I think Texas, after this crazy season, doesn't even have to leave the dish to make it to Omaha. So those are my 8 teams. I've got Tennessee, Stanford, Oregon State, Oklahoma, A&M, LSU, North Carolina, and Texas. And Zach, I did not realize this until after I was done. If I'm correct, and those are the 8 teams, the one half of the bracket in Omaha, the top half or the left half, however you want to look at it, would leave you with Tennessee versus Texas, Oklahoma versus A&M. So the 4 teams in that mini regional would be Tennessee, Texas, Oklahoma, and A&M. You talk about just absolute chaos and, marketing. Just that would be a dream for Omaha and college baseball to get those 4 teams on the same side of the bracket. Can you just imagine the storylines there?
Well, so what'll be funny if that did happen.
Yeah.
Who's A&M going to root for? Because it's all SEC, right?
Yeah. It wouldn't be Texas, but yeah, I mean, they're not going to root. I mean, that would just be, when I realized that would be the side of the bracket that would be happening to Omaha, I was just like flabbergasted that that's a possibility that I actually think might happen. But those are my 8 teams. Who you got?
Yeah, so I was just taking one quick glance because, there's a couple teams I feel really good about, and there's a couple teams that I'm like, let's see what happens. Starting at the top, I think Tennessee is going to run away with it. I really, really want to see Campbell win the first game, but use their number 2 pitcher, because I really want to see Tennessee versus Thomas Harrington. He's a semifinalist for the Golden Spikes, in my opinion. The dude is legit. He's a first-round draft pick. I think that would just be so much fun. But I have Tennessee advancing, and I actually have Notre Dame as well. I've hated on the Golden Domers all season long. I just do not trust the bullpen in Texas Tech. I think they're going to give up some runs to Georgia State. I think they'll give up some runs to Notre Dame. And so I have Tennessee. Surprise, surprise. It's going to be hard to pick against them. I realize that no team since 1999, the Miami Hurricanes, who've been ranked number 1, have won it. This is probably the year that's going to change. Yeah. Hopefully that just completely jinxes Tennessee and like Campbell comes out of that regional, but this is what I see. Looking at the number 2 overall seed, Stanford, I actually really love, I'm glad this is on the West Coast, because I look forward to watching this series. You got Texas State and UC Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara is going to sneak up on some people. They're sneaky, sneaky good. If you get a Stanford Santa Barbara matchup, that's one that potentially could be an upset. I think Stanford right now is playing just on fire. I think they're one of the hottest teams. So I am going to go Stanford chalk there, but I got my eye on Santa Barbara. That could be a special series right there. The regional that they're paired up with is the Maryland regional, 15 overall. This is the one I think could be absolute madness. I think UConn has played a Charmin tissue soft season. They're absolute garbage in the Big East. But in Wake Forest can mash the ball, right? Maryland comes from the Big Ten, which is just total garbage as well. And so I'm stuck with who hits best. Let's go Wake Forest. I think they're just going to go and just, hit 10 home runs. and they're just going to bat around these little league teams. Besides, have you seen Maryland's field? They actually did put in temporary bleachers to host this regional. So all 3,000 people are going to see this regional, and maybe someone shows up. I hope. I don't know.
Yeah, funny story. I actually had a cousin a while back that played for Maryland, and I went up to College Park to watch him play. Not a big stadium there, but good for them. They're hosting.
Yeah. But I see Wake Forest just absolutely blasting some missiles out of that College Park town, and then eating crab cakes to celebrate. And if that's the case at Stanford versus Wake Forest, give me Stanford 2 games in a row, and that's going to be an easy dust breeze. Yep. Coming back to the 9-8 team, we got the Texas regional. I think Texas makes it interesting, but I actually think they go 3-0. I think they just sweep through. Their offense, they're going to be at home, and Texas feeds off at home power. I just don't think any of the other teams have the bats to get through it. I actually think Coastal Carolina, I'm going to go with the Chanticleers. I think they come out of the East Carolina regional. I get it. East Carolina's hot, but there's that whole hot cold theory. I think East Carolina is going to do the opposite. I think they're going to be cold, hot, and then cold in the regional. So, Virginia could very well win it. East Carolina could win it. Coppin State has no chance. So let's just call that. But yeah, I think Texas wins. Coastal Carolina wins, and then Texas takes care of Coastal Carolina with ease. And they ease on into Omaha for the second straight year. And
unreal.
I do not want to see Texas versus Tennessee again. We saw them in Houston. I saw them in Omaha. Tennessee is going to be out for some blood. Like, they're going to be sacrificing Bevo dolls. It's going to be real ugly. They're going to have the pimp coat. Everyone in Omaha is going to have a pimp coat on. Goodness gracious. On the other half of the bracket, we got the UNC regional. Talk about a team that's been on fire. They were 500 in ACC play, but man, they closed out in a just beautiful fashion. But Georgia's going to go up against VCU, and they're not going to use Cannon in that game 1. So you got Cannon versus UNC. I think Georgia comes out of this. I think Georgia finds enough pitching, and they take down the number 10 seed UNC. So I got a lot of belief in that pitching staff from Georgia, even though they finished so poorly to the end of the season. They match up with the Oklahoma State's regional. And I think this is going to come down to Oklahoma State and Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon took Arizona to the woodshed a couple times. They beat Texas Tech 2 games in a row. I think they can make it interesting. And this is where if Bryce Osmond is pitching for Oklahoma State's fine. If he truly is out and it's only Medeiros and Campbell, I think there's a potential that Grand Canyon could sneak through here. Wow. I'll go with Oklahoma State, but that's one I have on big upset watch. I think Grand Canyon, they're one of those weird bubble teams that sneaks in, and then all of a sudden they just blast their way through. So
it does happen. Yep.
We'll see what happens there. But if it's Oklahoma State and Georgia, I like Oklahoma State. So pencil them in. And then we've got the fire regional right now. A&M versus TCU. Slosh 2.0. The NCAA had a nice little joke about this one.
No doubt.
It was off the record, but I'm going to say it for our audience. Even Chris Del Conte had a little quip about this game that was pretty funny yesterday on Monday during the selection show. Something about there being baseball gods. So I hands up, I got TCU coming out of it. I think their pitching is too good. I realize A&M's playing at Bluebell. They're going to have all those stupid bubbles. They're going to be hitting home runs. A&M hysteria, but it's A&M. And even as good as Schloss is, A&M has already made a Omaha 2022 shirt. So just seal their fate. They're going down. They're, TCU all the way.
Love that pick.
And then they're matched up with the Louisville. This one, it could go so many ways because it depends on which Oregon shows up for me. Oregon took 2 or 3 from Oregon State. Louisville's already beat Michigan early this season. It's going to come down to Louisville or Oregon. which one's playing better at the end of the season. They're both kind of hit and miss. I'll take Louisville just because I think they have probably more overall talent. But this is another one where I could see Oregon coming out really well. And then if it's TCU, Louisville, I still think TCU makes it. I mean, that may be the Big 12 homer in me, but I think they really do have a good squad. If it's TCU, Oregon, it's probably still TCU, but yeah, give me TCU and making it all the way through.
Gotcha.
On the other side, we got the Miami regional. I don't believe in Miami at all. I think even less of Arizona. They got no pitching at all. Ole Miss, it's a joke that they made it in. This is the Tommy Tanks. Like Ole Miss, Ole Miss better make a run to Omaha, or everyone else is gonna be like, "Why the hell are you here?" I'm gonna go chalk because I just have no faith in any of these teams. So I'll just take the highest rated seed. Give me Miami. Shout out to Dimitri from 11.7. That's for you, buddy. In the Southern Miss regional, look, Southern Miss has some pitchers. LSU's got some injuries. Give me LSU for the upset, and then give me LSU over Miami. I got LSU making it back to the College World Series in Jay Johnson's first year. Their pitching's terrible, but they got hitting, so I think they'll just slug their way through. The Florida regional, Oklahoma hands down. They made a run in the SEC tournament. I'm not buying it. I think Oklahoma is going to run away with that regional. And then the Virginia Tech. I think Virginia Tech, they're tough. Like they got a tough matchup with Gonzaga. It's potentially in the second round. Gonzaga is going to throw just 98 flamethrower out there. Virginia Tech has no pitching. And so I do think Oklahoma is going to make it to, like, they're my dark horse for the national title this year. I think Skip's got a team finally that can win it. So give me Oklahoma. On the Auburn regional, it's Auburn, UCLA, and Florida State. Florida State, I just don't have any faith in them. They have Messick, but he's struggled as of late. So give me UCLA. That 25-22 win over Oregon State sealed it for me in the tournament.
Yeah.
Pac-12 after dark. Plus UCLA beat Texas. Like I've seen them firsthand up. Like they're young, they're freshmen, but they've got some spunk. So give me UCLA over Auburn. And then it's gonna be a fun series. Vanderbilt versus Oregon State. I think Herpy wins that for the Beavers. And I think Oregon State ends up in Omaha as well. So I got Oregon State, UCLA, Vatech, Oklahoma, Louisville, TCU, LSU, Miami, Coastal Carolina, Oklahoma State, Georgia, Texas, Notre Dame, Wake Forest, Stanford, and Tennessee as all my super regionals. So,
and then your final 8 go through that again, because we were really similar.
Yeah, very similar. So I got Tennessee, I got Stanford, I have Oklahoma State, I got Texas, I have TCU, I have LSU, I have Oregon State, and I have Oklahoma. So
no, so we are very similar there. You've got 4 Big 12 teams making it to Omaha. That's funny. I like it.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be. I honestly think it's the Big 12's year, though. Like if you look at the Big 12 top to bottom, I think they probably have the most talent. But Tennessee is going to be really hard, and Oregon State and Stanford. If I get a Stanford Tennessee matchup in the final, I will not be disappointed.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's unfortunate, but it feels like it's one of those years. If you give me Tennessee versus the field, I'm probably taking Tennessee, and it's not great. Hopefully, I'm wrong and we get a lot of chaos, especially in Omaha, but we'll see what happens. But I mean, you'll be back next week breaking it down. Some breaking news. I will not be back next week. Unfortunately, it upsets me to be able to miss the show next week. It's going to be such a great show no matter what. I'm getting married, and then I'm going straight on my honeymoon. Long before I knew I'd be covering baseball for Texas this year, the wedding day was already set in stone, so there was no shifting that around. It's unfortunate, but obviously, it's a big day for me, big weekend for me. But the Horns will get it done regardless, and Zach will be back next week in some capacity on this show. Not sure who. You have any plans yet or any ideas yet, Zach? You're just gonna talk to yourself, maybe make like an Aaron cardboard cutout?
Yeah, I was gonna say, little did you know, I actually took a screenshot of you a moment ago. I'm just gonna have a little
Perfect.
cardboard like, hey, how's it going? So no, I don't know what I'm gonna do yet. I'll definitely have a show for everyone. Maybe I'll bring a special guest on. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It should be fun. So
Yeah. So, I mean, with that
something.
being said, check out all of Zach's great content on Orangebloods this week. Follow Zach on Twitter at Zach at the Dish. Don't worry about me. I'm going to be long gone. I'll be in the wind. I'm going to be checking scores. I'll be rooting on the Horns from wherever I am, but don't worry about me this week. But yeah, make sure you keep up with all of the great stuff Zach's got going on. You could still give us a like on this video, subscribe to the page as always. And with that, yeah, I mean, that'll be the parting words. Hopefully, I will make a return to this show with the Omaha preview for the Horns. We both predicted it, so what could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? It's not like we've been wrong ever this season. We've got them all right. So
we have been money all year. But with that being said, I'll go ahead and get us out of here. So yeah, hook 'em. Thank you guys for watching all year long.
Hook 'em.